Okay, so next up, let's talk about the very first Apple event of 2023. Rumors are flying right now about a January event, something Apple hasn't done in quite some time, which means if they're going to do it in January, it's going to be a really big deal because I can only think of a handful of products that have gotten January reveals. So I guess Macworld did used to be around then, right? So that's when we got the iPhone event in January 2007, but then we got the January 2010 iPad event, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we haven't had, if I can speak, we have not had a Apple event in January since 2010. So now 13 years later, we could be getting an event in January, and it could be a big deal because, Matt, what are we going to see at this event?
Well, the rumor is that the reason we have to have this January event is because the Apple AR VR headset is finally coming. Now, I guess spoiler alert, we have also heard some rumors that that's not going to happen. So what do we know about I guess you kind of hyped us up for this event happening. Now, what do we think about it not happening?
Well, from what I've seen, there have been rumors that it could be delayed, but it's unclear if the event is going to be delayed or the release is going to be delayed, because it seems like Apple is building this buffer window there of the announcement and then the release. So I wouldn't put all my eggs in one basket too much on that, but let's sort of broaden out a bit. Regardless of headset, what do we think we're going to see sort of from Apple in the first couple of months? If we have that first event in January, February, March, what do you think the products are that we're going to see at the first Apple event of the year? Like, what are going to be the newest products we're going to see at the beginning of the year for Apple to sort of set the stage for the rest of 2023?
Yeah, I think, okay, so the January event, let's say that happens, we're going to see this headset, obviously. There's, I guess, some new speculation about what it's going to be called for the OS, which everyone was thinking was going to be Reality OS, which makes perfect sense, so like ROS. Now it's XROS. Is it 10ROS? Is it XROS? Dumb name, I don't know. So I guess we have more speculation of that, so basically confirming that this is a real product that is coming. I guess the question I have, if we do have a January event, is that all we're going to see? Obviously, it's going to be dedicated to this product, but I can't remember ever, maybe I'm wrong, but I can't remember ever an Apple event happening where they don't talk about something else, even if it's tiny. The original iPhone, for instance, had the Apple TV announcement. The iPad, did the iPad not?
I think the iPad was just the iPad. I think with this one, because it's so different, and because if Apple is able to sort of control it with their virtual event sort of status like they've been doing, right, it really doesn't, well, I guess it costs some money to produce it, but it really doesn't sort of throw a curveball if it's just this. And I think that if Apple can do a nice hour-long presentation on just the headset and then how it works and the developer involvement and stuff like that, that kind of does make sense. I think that if we do get a January event, it's just going to be headset. I don't think we're going to see other products. That's my thinking right now.
No, that makes sense. Okay, so the next one would probably be in March. That's usually when we have the spring event. And I think there we probably get updates to kind of everything that we got at the last event, maybe. So that would be, what was that? The iPad Air? No, I'm trying to think. I know we got the Mac Studio and the Studio Display. So we'd probably see an update to the Mac Studio, to the M2 processor. What else do you think we'll see there?
Well, it's also been, so I'm trying to think of the spring event in 2020. That's when we got, or was it 2021? Like everything's fading together for me.
What
iMac.
product?
So we got iMac, we got AirTags, we got Apple TV, and something else. So MacBook Air, and Mac Mini. It's all blurring together. Basically, here's what I'm thinking. In the first of the year, sort of the first event, I think that we will see, like you mentioned, some M2 transitions in some computers. So I think the iMac is overdue for an M2 transition, probably MacBook Pros, and then maybe like Mac Mini too. Like I think that they could just rapid fire like a couple of, because it's just smaller updates. I think we will see the beginning of some M2 transitions at that spring event. Does that make sense? Do you think that's on track?
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I'm trying to think what else. I think that all makes sense. I can't really think of anything else that they would announce there. It's like the things that we were kind of expecting to see this year, that's when they would wrap it up and do it then, just because they had to delay it for whatever reason.
Like, I don't think we're going to get like a new AirTag. Like, it's probably not going to happen. What I do think might make sense at a spring event would be new AirPods Max. So if you haven't heard the rumors on that, new colors, H2 chip, new case, maybe some kind of different price. that does make sense to see sort of in the spring because that's sort of been overdue. And then thinking about it the other day, do you remember when the AirPods Max first came out almost 2 years ago now, or 3 years ago? No, 2 years ago. We're almost at the 2-year anniversary.
Yep.
There was a rumor of the Sport Edition, like a lower cost alternative that had different material. Do you think that makes sense in 2023 that, we have these nice Apple over-the-ear headphones, but do you think like the AirPods, the regular ones, have the regular and the Pros? Do you think we have a Max and then maybe like a SE? I don't know how they're going to do it, but do you think does a lower-end AirPods Sport make sense?
The only reason I can see that being a thing is for price. And other than that, I can't see it existing. And I don't know if Apple cares enough about that to warrant another product line. But they also do weird things. So maybe. I mean, I wouldn't be against it, but I guess, I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen, but I can see it happening. I think it was something they were working on, but I don't think it's actually going to happen.
I think what else we could see sort of in the beginning of the year, because I think the January event happening or not is going to really set the precedent. Yes, iPad Mini, it's been a little while for that. Some spec updates would be nice. Obviously, we've talked about it before. The iPad line as it stands is sort of a mess. Apple could really simplify that lineup and get rid of the base.
With the iPad, do you think the iPad Air will get updated to the M2?
That's a good question.
Because it's kind of dumb that it has the M1 right now. But do you think I mean,
the whole lineup is such a mess that they need to do something. They either need to drop that base model or tweak assuming that the lineup stays the same, I'm assuming, yes, they'd have to update it to the iPad or the M2 to sort of keep that relevant. But do you think they bring some other change to the iPad Air? Or do you think we're going to see the rumored, we've heard about larger iPad Pros. Do you think that makes an appearance in the spring? Like, I don't know.
Not in the spring. They just updated the Pros.
Yeah.
They just updated the Pros. I feel like if they do this bigger Pro or iPad Pro, I feel like that would be prime for when they fix whatever they did with iPadOS 16 and make it better. We've heard rumors of this macOS Lite, like Apple finally threw in the towel and they're like, we're just going to do it. So if that's true and they actually do release something like that, what better way to showcase it than with a 15-inch screen, So I don't think we're going to see that right now, especially since we just got updates of the Pros. And
I'll do my one more wild card for January because I'm trying to think of what we could see in the early part of the year. The one that might make sense before we sort of get into the summer back to school season would be a 15-inch MacBook Air. That's been in the works for a while. Doesn't seem crazy because it's just sort of taking the design we have and blowing it up. And WWDC for that doesn't seem like it makes a whole lot of sense, but also we saw the other Air at WWDC, so maybe Apple connects the dots on those. But I think that with the other products like the Mac Pro and some other updates there, maybe it'd be nice to sort of see a new laptop in the spring. So I'm just going to throw that out there as a guess.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I guess what throws a wrench in all of this is if that January event doesn't happen, because presumably they would still want to dedicate at least an hour to the headset on its own. And I don't know when else they could do that. So maybe they do 2 spring events. Maybe they do a May event like Gurman was predicting last year. Maybe that's something that happens. I don't know. But I think if this January event happens, then that's going to lay out what the rest of the year looks like. But until we know what's happening in January, it's going to be a little confusing. We're not going to know for sure.